Great to have you with us.
Thank you, John. It's wonderful to be with you.
Well, we want to talk about some energy-related issues in a second, but let's start with these classified documents. Republicans are looking for a lot of answers, and quite frankly, I think a lot of Americans are looking for these same answers. One specifically raised by Congressman Jim Jordan. He put this out on Twitter. Quote, what prompted the White House to look for Joe Biden's classified documents? What do you make of the lack of transparency here, and do you think we'll actually get these answers? Because now with the special counsel involved, it almost seems like there's been a cloak pulled over the ability of the public to get this information.
I think that they're going to be stalling just as they have. That's a hugely important question. Why did they find these documents now? It's been 6 years since he was vice president. What prompted them to search for the documents? Was there cleaning of the, in the Biden Penn Center? Did they all of a sudden think they needed to take the Corvette in a parade? So they're looking in the garage. I mean, seriously. What prompted them? Is this related to the Biden investigation? Is this related to the fact that Republicans got a majority and there's going to be investigations into corruption, investigations into the dealings in Ukraine, investigations into whether the Chinese Communist Party has some pressure or gave money to President Biden or to Hunter Biden, which then was filtered. So what prompted the search? Why did they do the search? Why only attorneys? As soon as they found the first documents, which was before the election, that should have been closed. And then there should have been an FBI, doesn't have to be a raid, but an FBI warrant listed where every single property that the Biden administration either lives or visits frequently, all of those should have been investigated and searched, and not through attorneys who have attorney-client privilege. Extraordinarily important. That's who's doing the looking for these documents, the attorneys who have attorney-client privilege. So is this to stall any investigation that the Republicans may do?
Well, you bring up a good point, too, about the election. And on November 2nd, did they realize that was the point at which they thought that Republicans were going to take back the House and these investigations might be coming? And so now it's time to play cleanup. That is, a question we may never get answered, but certainly one we want to get answered. Also, I want to talk about a Democratic congressman named Dan Goldman, who was actually a counsel on the Democrats' first Trump impeachment trial in 2019. He was talking to CBS News about Joe Biden's document scandal, and here he is.
Why would he send lawyers who don't have a security clearance to search for classified material?
I'm not sure, and we don't know the circumstances of that, but certainly the documents leave the vice president's office and have to be stored somewhere.
It seems like, based on that question, CBS News is now even curious about this, and there's like a little bit of blood in the water for Joe Biden. Will the pressure maintain on Joe Biden, or do you expect the media to kind of back off as they have historically from Democrats and, focus on other things that aren't as uncomfortable for Joe Biden?
I think it's going to be difficult for the media to walk away from this as they have from other issues. As you know, the Hunter Biden laptop, that was suppressed. That information was suppressed from the public prior to the 2020 election. I think this is going to be very difficult. And we don't know if the recovery of these documents and the supposedly quote unquote transparent nature of revealing that they had these classified documents. We don't know if that's because within the Democrat Party that they're trying to prevent President Biden from running for re-election. So that gets back to why were they disclosed now? Why wasn't this before the election? Who had access to these documents? How many times have they been moved to a location? Were they always locked? Why were there attorneys who didn't have classified clearing or security clearance? Why were they the ones that are looking through and finding the documents? This all reeks of corruption. And most importantly, I'm interested in what's in these documents. I'm not out there, shouting from the rooftops that they're super classified documents, as we heard with President Trump. However, let me tell you, you or I or a regular American citizen, were we to have classified documents, we would be treated vastly different.
Is it illegal or not for anyone but the president to have these classified documents without the power to declassify them? What they are, we may never know, but the process does matter in this case. All right, we promised a conversation about some Energy and Commerce Committee related stuff, but we wanted to get your take on what's happening in Wyoming. They are effectively phasing out, and I like the phrasing that they're using here, phasing out electric vehicles by 2035. Obviously a knock on other states like California that are trying to phase out fossil fuel powered vehicles. But here's what their bill reads, quote, the proliferation of electric vehicles at the expense of gas powered vehicles will have a deleterious impact on Wyoming's communities and will be detrimental to Wyoming's economy. You know, we've seen this in other states where they cannot support electric cars. They don't have the power grid to do so. They don't have the capacity to do so. What's your take on Wyoming's action here?
Well, as you know, California banned combustion engines, and so Washington State and Massachusetts followed the California law. But then, you know, within the same week, they said, oh, we don't have enough electricity, so don't charge your vehicle. So this is putting the cart before the horse. We don't have the grid. We don't have the infrastructure. We don't have the capacity to support a transportation sector that's all electric. And as we've done in Iowa, we are a leader in renewable fuels with ethanol, biodiesel, wind, solar, biomass, manure that's made into energy. We did have a nuclear power plant. And so the point is, each state has to have the flexibility to do what makes sense in their state. We have 50 laboratories of democracy. We need innovation, research, development, and we should be talking about reducing emissions.
The key thing there is has to make sense. And what we've seen from states like California, it doesn't make sense in the long term because, you know, they make these policies thinking we're all going to have flying cars in a matter of 15 years, and the technology doesn't actually materialize. Congresswoman Mary-Annette,
think how many electric vehicles were stalled on roads during the blizzard.
Exactly. Congresswoman Mary-Annette Miller-Meeks, great to see you. Say hello to everyone in Iowa for us. Take care.
Will do. Thank you so much, John.